episode is brought to you by Squarespace.
In the world of Fallout, things are bad, as one would expect when nuclear fire has reduced society to, well, mostly dust and a suspiciously high number of bottle caps. The kind of bad where going to the grocery store isn't shorthand for a mundane errand, but a high-stakes expedition where the prize is a dented can of irradiated cram, and the punishment is being eaten alive by a lizard the size of a sedan.
But here's the thing.
Even in the apocalypse, people still need hobbies. You can only spend so many hours scavenging for a slightly less expired Salisbury steak before you start asking the big questions. Like, what if I did literally anything else? And sure, you could spend your time rescuing your son from a shadowy institute, hell-bent on replacing humanity with robots, or teaming up with a militant cosplay group called the Brotherhood of Steel so you can press a button in the Jefferson Memorial and hopefully not explode. But maybe, just maybe, you deserve a break. Maybe today you say, you know what? I'm not jury-rigging a laser rifle out of a toaster and 3 coffee mugs. I'm not vatsing a raider scum into slow-motion giblets. I've got more pipe guns than I have friends. Today, I'm taking a me day. And that raises the question, what do the citizens of Fallout Wasteland actually do for fun? What does a me day even look like when the world is, objectively speaking, a pile of smoldering garbage? Well, today I will attempt to answer that question. After hours of rigorous research, I have concluded that there are exactly 9 things humans enjoy for fun. No more, no less. Let's find out how many of them survive after nuclear fire. Also, a few people have mentioned that I should do a better job of asking people to like, comment, and subscribe, and I always feel a little bit awkward asking, but here it goes. If you enjoy this video, please like. Firstly, we have exercise and exploration. Exploration might actually be the #1 pastime in Fallout, which is wild because it's also the #1 cause of death and dismemberment. Some do it out of necessity, but plenty do it just to have a nice Sunday afternoon in the country. The world itself offers landmarks as entertainment. For example, in Fallout 3, you can ascend the long-abandoned Washington Monument and install a radio relay. Climbing that obelisk past sandbags and old sniper perches provides a panoramic, if not a little beige view of the Capital Wasteland. In Fallout New Vegas, there's the Hoover Dam. Not just a critical plot location, but once a bona fide tourist attraction. By 2281, it's a high-stakes chessboard for factions, but it still has that vibe of a place you'd go to on the weekend just to stand around and say, yep, this is a dam. Fallout 4 lets you explore iconic Boston sites. Bunker Hill, the USS Constitution, and of course Fenway Park, now known as Diamond City. In Fallout 76's Appalachia, there's an actual Pioneer Scouts program. Young survivors can earn badges in swimming, archery, and athletics by completing challenges. There's even an exam at the end, showing that getting the youth of the wasteland involved in the outdoors is still an important part of this world. And the thing is, it still makes sense. Hiking is one of those eternal human pleasures. Fresh air, stretching your legs, climbing to a high point just to say you did. Only here, the fresh air is 90% radiation, and the high point is covered in feral ghouls who think you're a protein bar. Because I know that once I got over the whole impending doom part of nuclear annihilation, I'd be strapping on my trusty NCR Ranger boots and I'd be heading out into the great Appalachian mountains for a nice hike. And sure, the birdsong has been replaced by the distant scream of a scorched ghoul, and every scenic overlook has a 50-50 chance of collapsing under your weight into a nest of rad roaches, but that is part of the charm. Nothing quite says I am alive like standing at the top of a mountain, breathing in that crisp, faintly glowing air, and thinking to yourself, this is nice. I wonder when the next super mutant will find me. But I know what you're thinking. That's all well and good until a rad storm rolls in and my skin starts sizzling like a Salisbury steak. And fair point, you can't always go outside. And that brings us to #2. Games. Because nothing makes a radioactive thunderstorm feel cozier than huddling in a half-collapsed shack and breaking out a nice wholesome board game. The pre-war world left behind plenty of games, and thank Adam for that. I give you Blast Radius, a nuclear-themed board game for ages 5 and up. And it isn't the only option. Fallout features board games like Catch the Commie, Autopsy, and Rad Poker. But it doesn't stop there. Wastelanders also came up with new games. In Fallout New Vegas, caravan merchants got so bored on the road they invented a whole new card game called Caravan. It's a strategic blackjack-like game played with mixed decks, and it became all the rage on the New Vegas Strip. Of course, New Vegas being New Vegas, one can also partake in traditional gambling, blackjack, roulette, slots, you name it. Nothing spells fun like a gambling addiction. Does it, Dad? Holotape games are another staple. Fallout lets you collect little cassettes that play retro arcade games right on your Pip-Boy. There's Red Menace, which is definitely not Donkey Kong, Atomic Command, which is absolutely not Missile Command, and my personal favorite, Grognak and the Ruby Ruins, which is most definitely the Bard's Tale. All beautiful, fun distractions as you weather the storm from inside your shelter. And speaking of collections, that brings us to #3 on our list of essential fun, collecting stuff. The apocalypse may have taken your friends and your family and your home, but it can never take your vault Vault-Tec bobblehead shelf. In a world of scarce resources, anything collectible becomes treasure. Vault-Tec bobbleheads are a prime example. Vault-Tec created these cute Vault Boy figurines as promotional items, and post-war survivors just love them. Why, you ask? Because each bobblehead you find actually improves one of your skills or special stats. Talk about collectible value. Out west in New Vegas, the collectibles of choice are snow globes. They won't boost your stats or give you perks, but boy do they pay handsomely. If you can actually bring yourself to part with them, you little hoarder you. Each one is themed after a local landmark, from Good Springs to the Hoover Dam to Mount Charleston. Like a miniature magical tourist gift shop that somehow survived the end of the world. And then there's Jangles the Moon Monkey. Comics and magazines are also massive collectibles, but they don't really belong in this section because they're less about hoarding and more about, reading. Which is why they are officially classified as fun activity number 4. Reading and stories. What better way to spend a leisurely Saturday afternoon than curling up under your favorite irradiated elm tree and cracking open a nice book? The Wasteland is scattered with books, comics, and journals. Pre-war books are rare valuables in Fallout 3. There's even a librarian in the Brotherhood of Steel who pays for any intact books you bring to her. But escapist literature survives too. One comic the kids go crazy for is Grognak the Barbarian. Wasteland kids love this guy, because nothing makes you forget about eating radroach meat like watching a beefy man in a loincloth solve every problem by introducing it to the sharp edge of steel. There's also The Unstoppables, a pre-war comic series about a team of superheroes. And let's not forget astoundingly awesome tales, with titles like Deep Sea Terror, Sinister Seafood Strikes. There's also lifestyle magazines like Live and Love, that have articles on how not to be an alcoholic and how to cut down your waist size. Guns and Bullets, for people whose hobby is guns and bullets. Massachusetts Surgical Journal, for anyone who looked at their buddy's compound fracture and thought, I got this. La Coiffe, for hair tips that make no sense when every shower's been broken since 2077. And Picket Fences, if you want to turn your shitbag shack into a better shitbag shack. And my personal favorite, the US Covert Operations Manuals that are kicking around the wasteland. Training handbooks produced by the United States Department of the Army to train its personnel in the art of subterfuge. These manuals are not intended for public circulation and are marked authorized eyes only, so it always feels a little risque cracking into one of these bad boys. And then there's radio dramas like The Silver Shroud, a noir comic hero. It's so beloved in Boston that an entire quest lets you dress up in a Silver Shroud coat and hat and roleplay as the hero. It's the closest you're gonna get to a Comic-Con convention in the Wasteland. And don't think there aren't current authors roaming around the Wasteland. In Fallout 3, you can find Moira Brown researching and writing the Wasteland Survival Guide, a DIY book for surviving radiation, minefields, and mole rats. By Fallout 4, copies of that very Survival Guide magazine can be found, indicating Moira's work spread and is being read. So yes, people still do read in the Wasteland. And if all that reading is starting to make you feel a little peckish, fret not. Because what better way to have fun than sitting down to a nice meal? That's right. Fun thing number 5 is eating and drinking. In the immortal words of Virginia Woolf, one cannot think well, love well, sleep well, if one has not dined well. Virginia Woolf would not have survived the Fallout Wasteland.
We now interrupt this program for a quick word from today's sponsors, Squarespace. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Before the bombs dropped and turned the neighborhood into a charming fixer-upper, folks everywhere use Squarespace, the all-in-one platform helping everyday Americans stand out and succeed online. Why, with Squarespace, you can claim your very own domain, design a professional website, and show those raiders you mean business, all in one handy place. But don't take it from me. Take it from famous celebrity YouTuber Bandicoot. Say hi, Bandicoot. Hi. He's been tinkering with his very own Squarespace site, and thanks to Squarespace's cutting-edge design tools, even a fellow like him can whip up a bespoke website faster than you can say sugar bombs made all my teeth fall out.
Thank you, Squarespace.
Thank you, Bandicoot. Their brand new Blueprint AI builder practically reads your mind. Just tell it who you are, what you do, and presto, a polished site appears like magic. And don't you worry about folks finding your site amidst all the rubble. Squarespace's built-in SEO tools help you get discovered quicker than a Vault-Tec lunchbox at a yard sale. Auto-generated sitemap, meta descriptions, why, the whole gosh darn shebang. So march on over to squarespace.com/Bandicoot for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use code Bandicoot to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Go on and thank Squarespace, Bandicoot.
Thank you, Squarespace.
Even in a radiation-soaked wasteland, people gotta eat. Granted, the menu isn't exactly fine dining, unless you think 200-year-old fancy lad snack cakes or sugar bomb cereal count as gourmet. But they're so full of preservatives they outlasted the apocalypse, which if you want to know more about the food of Fallout, here you go. Be free, my little foodie. If you're lucky, you might score some actual fresh food, and luckily there's no shortage of meat here. Bloatfly meat, angler meat, coyote meat, brahmin steak, deathclaw steak, and if you know the right raider scum, maybe even crispy squirrel bits. You ever seen iguana on a stick in one of these games? That succulent skewer has been a Fallout staple since the first game, and if you've read any of the lore, you know it's made out of you and me.
Human.
Yet survivors still find a way to treat themselves. And if I know fun, it's culinary adventures with friends. In Diamond City in Boston, folks line up at Power Noodles, a one-counter ramen bar run by a Protectron robot named Takahashi. Or if Lady Luck is really on your side, you could happen upon a perfectly preserved pie. And when all else fails, there's always the old-fashioned Blamco mac and cheese or Fancy Lads snack cakes. It might be irradiated, but they just call it extra flavor in Fallout. Wastelanders wash down their meals with lukewarm Nuka-Cola or its western cousin Sunset Sarsaparilla. Remember, in life you are what you eat, so pass that bowl of mole rat stew and let's dine. Bon appetit. Of course, meals often lead to conversation, and if your charisma points are stacked high enough that conversation doesn't just end at small talk, suddenly dinner becomes flirting. Flirting becomes something a little more special. And whether you pass the dialogue check with persuasion, wit, charm, or sheer terrifying presence, you've just unlocked fun thing number 6. Romancing and socializing. Even after the bombs, people still want companionship. Sometimes that means love. Sometimes it just means talking to someone who isn't actively trying to shoot you in the head or loot your corpse. And there is a social life to be found in the Wasteland. Megaton's got the brass lantern, Diamond City's got the dugout inn, and Novac's got a giant dinosaur that you can hang out in. Alone. And romance, oh, it is here. You can flirt your way into the hearts of Piper, the spunky reporter, Kate, the drug addict, or Paladin Dance, a man who wants to kill robots. And that's just one game. Fallout treats these like real relationships, too. Piper shares her insecurities, Kate fights her addiction, and Paladin Dance finds out that he's a robot and insists that you put a bullet between his eyes. Social life goes beyond flirting, though. Goodneighbor has the Third Rail Club, and New Vegas has the Atomic Wrangler, where you can drink, gamble, and romance a robot named Fisto. And if you've ever been in a garbage situation with a friend and it turned into a treasured memory, that's called companionship. And since Fallout's Wasteland is basically 24/7 garbage, friends are the only thing that make it worth living in. After all, there's no fun quite like the fun you have with friends. Friends are great, but you know what's better than your friends? Beating your friends. Welcome to fun thing number 7. Sports and competition. Nothing rallies community spirits, builds bonds, and helps you forget that the average life expectancy is now 18, quite like a good sporting event. Sports in the post-nuclear world aren't quite the NFL, but humans will always find a way to compete. For example, in Fallout 4's Commonwealth, the folks of Diamond City have baseball. According to enthusiastic vendor Mo Cronin, baseball was a brutal gladiatorial contest. 2 teams would meet and play, and one team would beat the other to death with the bats. Cronin will even show you a genuine baseball card and claim that the numbers on the back are kill counts from on-field carnage. The irony is Diamond City is built on Fenway Park, the old Boston Stadium, but the survivors turned the field into a shanty town and forgot the real game. Now they just enthusiastically buy Moe's swatter bats to defend against raiders, thinking they're honoring a blood sport tradition. Elsewhere, gladiatorial combat is alive and well. In Fallout 4's raider-infested combat zone, Wastelanders used to bet caps on cage fights. Over in New Reno, Fallout 2, they went a more old-school route, prize fighting. There's also the Thorn in Fallout New Vegas, an underground arena in Westside where combatants fight giant mutated creatures for sport. Sports, Wasteland style, often involves claws and explosives. One of the most popular sporting pastimes amongst the teenagers is brahmin tipping. Yes, the old cow tipping legend survives, but now the cows have 2 heads. Sneak up to a brahmin and shove. It causes no real harm and nobody even gets mad at you for it. It's probably the closest thing to an innocent sport the Wasteland has. In our world, people gather for football games and prize fights. In Fallout, they gather for cage matches and brahmin tipping. Different arenas, but same idea. The thrill of seeing somebody else get hurt so you can forget your own problems for a second. But when the game's over, you're still in a radioactive wasteland, your friends are still dead, and your roof is still a tin sheet held together with duct tape, which is why humanity invented the ultimate coping mechanism: faith and religion. Fun thing number 8. When times get desperate, humans invent faith. And Fallout's Wasteland has no shortage of the faithful. The most famous, the Children of Adam. The people who looked at radiation poisoning and said, God? They worship a deity called Adam who personifies nuclear weapons, their explosions, and their delightful glowing aftermath. Basically every horrible thing that happens to your body in the irradiated wastelands, tumors, hair loss, your skeleton peeking through your skin, they've rebranded all of it as steps towards enlightenment. Not every wasteland religion is that grim. Some are more, let's call it, self-improvement chic. The hobologists are basically Scientology, promising cosmic alignment and spiritual upgrades if you hand over enough caps. It's less eternal salvation and more pyramid scheme with matching robes. Then you've got the cryptid cults like the Mothman worshippers. Instead of Adam or L. Ron Hubbard, they've built a whole faith around a giant bug man. And if I had to pick one, I'd pick the big bug man. And let's not forget those who perform small personal rituals for luck or comfort. In Fallout 4, Mama Murphy insists on her chem-induced visions. That's her spiritual practice, ingesting drugs to commune with some mysterious sight. Sounds like Mama Murphy needs a little mama intervention. Faith in Fallout is less about rules and more about survival. It's looking at the end of the world and saying, okay, but what if this was on purpose? Because if the choice is die of radiation or turn radiation into a religion, you might as well pick the one where the choir glows in the dark. Finally, we must acknowledge a beloved wasteland pastime: loafing around. With all the scavenging, shooting, and running from mutants, sometimes people need to just park their rear on a brahmin skin couch and do nothing. The games themselves show this in spades. Stroll through any settlement and you'll find NPCs engaged in truly mundane activities. Some settlers will sit in a chair all day and watch the dust settle. In Diamond City, there's an old guy, Abbott, whose entire job is just painting this wall. That's his life, and I respect that. Check out old Jeannie Crawford, the motel matron in Novac. She walks over here and sweeps this one spot 16 times a day. She ain't cleaning shit, but that's not the point. It's busy work, almost meditative. You can see it as these developers not giving these NPCs any real routine, but what if they're just being? Let's be real. When every day is a fight for survival, those rare moments of boredom are a luxury, so people treasure them. As players, we often hurry characters along, but have you ever just stayed overnight in, say, Novac's motel and watched Manny Vargas come off his sniper shift? He goes to his room, sits on a couch for a while, and then eventually lies down. In the morning he gets up and he goes back to work. That in-between time he was effectively doing nothing. Maybe reading a pre-war magazine or polishing his rifle, but mostly just existing. And it's funny because that's exactly what we do. Strip away the radiation, the super mutants, the two-headed cows, and what's left? People just trying to stay busy. People trying to convince themselves that there's meaning in the little things. And cheering for a team, or reading a comic, or watching a stupid YouTube video. Because that's the secret. Fun isn't about the world being safe, or normal, or even remotely functional. Fun is about people insisting on joy anyway. Whether you're in Washington, or Novac, or God help you, Boston, you make fun. Even if it's literally just sitting on your ass and doing nothing, and calling that a hobby. So yes, the world of Fallout is bad, but in between the raiders and the rad storms and the 10,000 pipe guns, humans still carve out their little me days. And that's what makes the wasteland feel alive. After all, war never changes, but fun always finds a way.